Today I'm going to be talking about how to debrief challenge course elements and why it's so important to include a debrief while you're on challenge course. Debriefing is probably one of the most important parts of challenge course because this is where you really get to dive in deeper with your campers and talk about what their strengths and weaknesses were and what they learned from the element. If you don't do this, you're basically only on challenge course to have fun, and it really doesn't encourage any personal growth from the campers. To begin with debriefing a challenge course, I always like to make sure that the scene is set and that they realize this is kind of a serious thing that we're going to talk about for debriefing. I like to take my campers away from the challenge course element, walk them through the woods a little bit and find a log to sit on or a place of grass or something like that. I have them all sit down and then face me. I make sure they get rid of anything that they have in their hands, their water bottles, their sticks, or anything like that, and really get them to focus on this is more of a serious discussion. This is calm, and they're facing me, and their attention's on me, not on the other things that they were carrying or doing. When this is all set up, I like to first ask them how would they rate the element. And what this does is this lets them actually start thinking about the element, how well they did on it, what they struggled with, and things like that. But it's a fairly easy thing to do. They don't have to really critically think about exactly how to put that into words or anything like that. And what I normally do for how they would rate the element, I simply say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the element? And then hold it up on your fingers, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And this way I can see the range of answers from the campers, and I can kind of see like, oh, this camper thought we did amazing. This camper thought we really struggled and things like this. And as a facilitator, this is good for me to understand how the group thought about the element. Another rating system that I use is just a thumb scale. This is awesome. This is really bad. This is like an even easier way to kind of rate the element. Another more creative way that I use to rate the element when I'm trying to change things up a little bit after we've done a few elements in a day or in the week, I say, describe the element in 1 word. This is a little bit harder to do and they have to think a little bit more critically about it. Some campers simply say fun or something like that, but you get some really good answers by doing this too. After they have rated the element, I ask campers to share why they rated the element in such way. Some campers will start sharing right away and they'll like to talk about a lot of things, and sometimes this is the same camper over and over again. So as a facilitator, I like to pick certain people. Maybe the camper that had the lowest rating of the element, I pick him and say, okay, you rated it a 5. Like, I thought we did pretty good. Why do you think we could have done better? And that way they have to actually back up their rating, and it gets the group talking about what they did wrong or what they did right. I really try and make sure that each camper gets to share if they want to and encourage group participation, because that's how the campers really learn. It's not through one person talking or me talking or anything like that. It's them debriefing the element as a group and really understanding their differences as they debrief the element. When groups don't do that well on elements, there's normally some frustration and they rate the element really poorly. And when this happens, I like to focus on the positives and get them talking about what they think they did well. This way, you're not focused on just the negatives and they're not frustrated still after the element. Also, it can also be good to say, okay, well, maybe it didn't go that well, but what do you think you could do differently? And a really good question is, if you did this element again, what would you do differently? And this is good for groups that did well and who didn't do well, because groups that did really well, it's good for them to think like, oh, we're not perfect. We definitely could have done something a little bit better and done this element a little bit faster and better as a team. And this gets them thinking too. After the group has shared, I also like to share my opinion to give the group a little bit of insight onto what I saw. If a group was really frustrated, I really like to highlight the positives. I like to say, Jimmy did this really well, but you guys didn't really listen to him. So I think in future elements, like maybe this is something that you could work on, like listening to everyone's ideas. Or I thought it was really good how you guys all held this board together and you really worked as a team here. I know the element wasn't maybe a full success or something like this, but this specific part of the element was really successful. And I think you guys can carry this on to other elements. On the opposite side of that, sometimes I personally think a group struggled a little bit, but they think they did a really, really good job, which is good because that means they have a positive attitude about it. And this is one of the good things about challenge course, when you see a group just have a positive attitude the entire time. But I do like to bring up the things that they struggled with, because that will help them be a better efficient group later on and help on their leadership and collaboration skills. I like to say like, yeah, like I think you guys did a really good job, but right here I saw that you weren't listening to this person speak as much, or someone was going too far ahead and didn't focus on the rest of the group. And I think you guys can work on this better in the future. If I have an older group, I'm normally pretty honest with them and I'll be like, you guys are an awesome cabin and you did a really good job on this element, but I have high expectations for you guys, but I think you guys can do an even better job. And I think if you work on these 2 things, then you'll be able to do elements even better in the future. And I think this is good because you're being mature with them, you're being honest with them, and they normally appreciate the feedback and look to get better. Overall, debriefing is a really important part of challenge course. I know sometimes that you're running out of time and things like that, and you think debriefing is just one more thing we have to do and we're going to miss another activity. It's really one of the most important things. The challenge course isn't the challenge course without debriefing elements, and it's really important. Sometimes if I am running out of time, we debrief as we walk to another activity or something like that if we are running late. But it's important to have that debrief no matter what you're doing. Sometimes some will be more in depth, sometimes they'll just be a little bit shorter, but no matter what, don't ever skip the debrief, because that's what makes the challenge course the challenge course. Thank you. I hope this was helpful, and if I can provide any more tips, just let me know.